Hello and good day everyone, welcome back to the show. I'm Sean David, thanks for tuning in. In today's episode, I want to talk about NBA legends and NBA superstars. They were booed on draft night because fans didn't think that they were the right choice. But before we start with this video, if you like the show, do me a favor, please subscribe. Also check out my Patreon account, you will find the link underneath the video. And I hope you enjoyed this episode, so let's go. Now the first player that I want to talk about is for your old school fans, Majerle, aka Thunder Dan. One of the best shooters of the 1990s and a player who was always known to be the hardest working guy in the gym. But for whatever reason, fans of the Phoenix Suns were not too pleased when his name got mentioned at the NBA draft. You won't find many NBA players who were drafted with the 14th pick and have such a great NBA career like Majerle has. Not only was he a three-time NBA All-Star, but always one of the most popular players in the entire NBA. It took him a while to adjust to the speed of the NBA, but once he really arrived, he was a great player. This shows that you have to be patient with some players, but at draft night, the fans of the Phoenix Suns thought that Majerle would be a bust.
The Phoenix Suns select Majerle of Central Michigan University.
We are very happy to select Majerle. I cannot help how you feel. All I can tell you is this: we couldn't be happier, and I think you people will be sorry that you ever booed this young man.
And the next player that I want to talk about is Penny Anthony Hardaway. At the 1993 NBA draft, you had quite a few good players you could choose. You had Chris Webber, you had Shawn Bradley, and you had Penny Hardaway. I remember it like it was yesterday. That draft was crazy. The Orlando Magic selected Chris Webber with the first pick. The fans were going crazy. They really wanted to have Webber. Now you had the powerhouse of Shaquille O'Neal and Chris Webber on one team. But what the fans didn't know was that behind the scenes, Shaquille O'Neal was pulling his strings and told the Orlando office that he would consider leaving the Magic if they don't choose Penny Hardaway. So the Orlando Magic traded Chris Webber for Penny Hardaway on draft night, and the fans were going crazy. They wanted to have Chris Webber so bad that they actually started to boo Penny Hardaway.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to report a trade. Orlando has traded the draft rights to Chris Webber to Golden State in exchange for the draft rights to Anthony Hardaway and 3 future first-round draft picks.
Obviously, the combination of Shaquille O'Neal and Chris Webber sounds really interesting, and definitely those two guys would have been able to cause some damage. But let's say Penny Hardaway never gets injured. I really believe that Penny and Shaq was the better combination, and at that time it just looked like something special. So in my opinion, the Orlando Magic definitely made the right choice. And the next legend that I want to talk about is Reggie Killer Miller. The Indiana Pacers fans, just like the New York Knicks fans, can be pretty harsh, as Reggie Miller was a major disappointment for them when their team decided to trust him with the 11th overall pick instead of Steve Alford, a hometown player who played for the University of Indiana. When the cameras were on Reggie Miller when he was at home, you could really see that he had a hard time answering the questions, being disappointed that the fans didn't show him any love. But once Reggie stepped on the floor, everything changed really quickly. Not only did he become one of the best shooters of all time and a Hall of Famer, but we're talking about one of the most important players of an entire generation. Now the next player that I want to talk about is Damon Stoudamire, aka Mighty Mouse. If you haven't heard of him, believe me, that guy was the real deal. He was not only the surprise of the draft, but once he entered the NBA, he shocked everybody. He was quick, he had great court vision, and that guy knew how to score. And of course, he was the Rookie of the Year. Regardless of his team's desires, Isaiah Thomas decided to go with a tweener point guard in Damon Stoudamire, despite the fact that most people wanted to go with Ed O'Bannon out of UCLA during Toronto's first season in the NBA. getting a lot of hate from fans that didn't want to see the second coming of Muggsy Bogues, the Mighty Mouse, proved that he belongs in the NBA as a great floor general and great facilitator, and he's one of the most beloved players both by the Raptors and Blazers fans up to date.
You were a surprise draft choice by the Raptors, so it was a big deal for the folks in Toronto. They announced Damon Stoudamire. Right. The fans booed. Right. They weren't happy. Right. Did that rub you the wrong way?
That really didn't bother me. Nothing was going to take that moment for me. I got drafted, so they could have booed. They could have threw stuff on the stage, but it wasn't going to take my moment. You know, it wasn't going to take
That wasn't one of
moment.
those moments where you're looking for motivation, people doubting me and building your anger. I'm going to carry that forward. That was just sheer bliss.
Nah, because I remember when Sager interviewed me and talked about I said, I'm not worried about that. Once I play, they'll be fine. You know, they can't take this moment right here. This is my moment. They can't take that.
And the next player that I want to talk about is John Stockton, probably my all-time favorite point guard next to Magic Johnson. When Stockton was drafted in 1984 by the Utah Jazz, the fans weren't too pleased at all. Why? They have never heard of this guy. They didn't know that John Stockton was a great defender and an incredible passer and would become the all-time leader in steals and assists.
I was at a camp at Weber State where Neil McCarthy was the coach. He says, have you heard about this kid on Gonzaga, John Stockton? Take a look at him. You know, I think he's going to be pretty good. To be honest with you, it wasn't like I rushed home and said, oh, we got to look up this guy or something. I forgot about it.
Stockton's game didn't grab anyone at first glance. And coming out of college, even he didn't picture himself in the NBA.
I had heard that there was basketball in Europe and didn't really know what that meant, didn't really know how to get there. Just thought that was the next logical step if I really wanted to continue playing, which I did. I certainly had no thoughts that I'd ever have a chance even to try out for an NBA team, let alone be drafted. I was in the middle of my parents' kitchen. People from around the neighborhood, some close friends of my parents all came down to watch the draft. I don't even think I was nervous. I was just watching.
For the 16th pick, the Utah Jazz select John Stockton of Gonzaga University.
John Stockton, a surprise here at the Feld Forum because his name certainly not on the lips of the fans here in New York.
It's a small house. We had a lot of people in it, and it just kind of erupted. And I just remembered walking outside and, thinking that this is really neat, but not really knowing what to do with myself. And then the phone rang. Hot Rod Hundley was on the other end of the line. He told me that it wasn't booing that they were doing, it was hooing. They were asking, who is this? Who is this?
And the next player on my list is Steve Nash. Kind of funny, but yes, Steve Nash was also booed on his draft night. Nash is a player who might have made a career out of being underestimated by everyone. He was the 15th pick of the 1996 NBA draft, but because of the fact that he came from a very unknown and small college named Santa Clara, he was booed by the fans. At that point, no one could expect that he would become one of the best passers in NBA history and a two-time MVP. So obviously there are many other players like Dirk Nowitzki, Michael Redd that we could talk about, but the last one in this video is a pretty recent one, Kristaps Porzingis, who was booed badly by the New York fans, even in his first NBA game in the Madison Square Garden, but he quickly proved all the fans wrong.
With the fourth pick in the 2015 NBA Draft, the New York Knicks select Kristaps Porzingis from Liepaja, Latvia. He last played for Sevilla in Spain.
The one watching that Phil Jackson Roses might be smoking crack. Is this a bull?
What do you think about the Knicks pick?
Wow. I would have went with, honestly, anybody else at that point.
Knicks management is known for making fucked up decisions. You know what I'm saying? But I'm a diehard Knicks fan.
It is a fucking joke. I don't know. I put so much effort into this fucking team. What did I do to deserve this?
I've been a Knicks fan since 05. I watched Starbury and, Penny Hardaway and everything like that. They never learn. They never, ever learn.
We could have got Karl Anthony Towns, but the lottery ball screwed us, but it's just...
Alright you guys, that's it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Please don't forget to hit that subscribe button and maybe check out my other videos too. Alright, see you next time.